You are listening to the It's Your Time podcast, and I'm your host, Certified Life Coach Michelle Bourque. In today's episode, I'm discussing being the CSO of your life.
Welcome to the It's Your Time podcast, the podcast where busy professionals like you get the practical solutions and support you need to gain control of your schedule so you can strive to be the best in your career, but without the stress and overwhelm. If you're looking to increase your energy and decrease your stress, you are in the right place.
Hello. Welcome back to the podcast, friends. I have to tell you, I am feeling so proud and grateful. And why, you might ask? Well, I will tell you. I am actually starting the week with having meetings at the Women in Leadership Conference in Orlando, and it is truly the ultimate experience, equipping women leaders with actionable strategies to overcome hurdles that we face in the workplace. And it is 4 days of truly immersing yourself in the work, like the work on yourself, the leadership development opportunities and skills to accelerate and advance women leaders across all levels and across all industries and roles. And it is an amazing opportunity to network and meet folks and learn about people in career changing ways and scalable impacts that we can have on organizations. It is just so amazing. And if you look back through episodes, you will find a couple that I talked about last year when I had this amazing opportunity. And it was specific to like the insights of my experience while I was here. And in this episode, what I want to talk about is my thoughts around women in leadership, but I guess more specific to your own specific CSO leadership, meaning being the chief self officer in your life. Because I do not think that leadership is limited to titles, right? I think that you can lead where you are in all aspects of your life, and you lead with influence, you lead with impact, and you can lead with authority. And that looks different for everyone. And I love even as simple as telling my nieces, like we're on a trip or whatever, okay, you lead the way. Any sort of reinforcement or semantics that can let them know that they can step into whatever power looks like, right, in that moment, and they can make a difference. And I think that if we can kind of build those neural pathways early and often, we will be in a much better place when we look to the future, right? Leading into the future. Now, I think when we get into the workplace, leading for women especially can include traits like emotional intelligence, collaboration, resilience, and belief in self. Belief in self, in my opinion, is one of those spirals of growth adventures, right? We can get a role and we can do the work and we can build confidence and we can start feeling good. And then we move the goalpost, right? We take on the next role. And it might not feel quite as steady to begin with, but we have to keep at our core the belief in self so that we do keep going and we continue to grow and we continue to advance in those spirals. And so many times we look to external sources for approval of moving on to that next level, right? Like making sure we're checking the boxes. We want to look for approval from others or guidance. And guidance is great, but I say guidance with knowing that you have the answers within yourself, right? We look to others for what we quote unquote should be doing or quote unquote the right answer. And that's a lot of looking outside of ourselves, right? No wonder why we're feeling so stressed and overwhelmed. We're constantly looking like, okay, does that person know? Does that person know? Let me ask that person. Let me get one more opinion over here. And then maybe I'll think that I know what the right answer is. No, what if we just say the answer is within? And you don't have to keep looking all over the place for that answer. Like you know it, trust it, and listen to yourself. And when I hear myself talking about these things, right, when I say you have the answer, you know it, let me just also remind you that it's also the message to myself, right? I am here on the journey with you, and I think all of us can have the opportunity to to step into greater belief in ourselves. Because I do believe at the end of the day, that is where our true leadership is held. We know that we have advances in women leadership positions when we look at like the titles, right? And may I also add, there are still some, shall I say, opportunities for growth. But the one thing that I want to offer here is again that it starts at yourself. It starts not with the titles of CEO or VP or CFO. What I'm talking about is the title of CSO, Chief Self Officer. It's you having a mindset and approach to personal leadership where you take charge of managing your own life with the same dedication and strategic focus that a CEO brings to running a company. It means being the head of your own, shall we say, life enterprise, right? How fun does that sound? Yes, I am CSO of my own life enterprise. Guiding yourself with purpose, setting clear goals, and making intentional choices that align with your values, your personal growth goals, and your well being. And like a CEO, a CSO is continuously redefining and defining the vision to adapt to the changes and circumstances or values or things that are going on in your life. So, what I mean is that you get to redefine the goals, you get to redefine what success means to you in every season of your life. But in order to do that, you have to have intentional decision making. You have to be deliberate in that decision making about your time, about your energy, about your resources. And I really want you to focus on some of the long term goal fulfillment that you want to achieve versus some of the short term impulses. And I will just say, what this looks like for me is oftentimes having the ability to maybe say no to something because you know it's going to open yes to a greater goal that's long term versus getting that dopamine hit of like being able to be the one to like take care of everything. I'm here. I get it. It feels good when you get that initial, like, yep, I took care of it. I got it. We're good. But ask yourself, is this the right answer for your greater goals, for the long term goals? I really want to encourage you to start thinking about prioritizing your time and energy based on those goals and values. And you need to be clear. You need to be able to take a couple of minutes to think about what that is. What are your values? What are your goals? How are you currently spending your time? And how might you have to shift and change that in order to accomplish the longer term goals? Just as a CEO prioritizes for organizational success, right? And I talk a lot about this here. You need to be able to decide what needs to be done each day in order to move the needle in your life. So, reducing the kind of running around like a chicken with our heads cut off, trying to take care of everything and do everything and be everything to everyone. Take a moment. What are you doing today for your future self? When you look down the road, your future self could actually be you at the end of the day. Your future self could be you tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. You get to define what that is for you. And what I want to encourage you to do is once you start getting those goals, once you start thinking about your future self, start time blocking. It is one amazing skill that you can begin implementing in order to accomplish your goals. So, yes, you can make a list, but then put those items that are in alignment with your priorities and goals on the calendar for a specific time and for a specific amount of time, right? Take on this new level of personal accountability where you hold yourself accountable for the actions and the outcomes, and you regularly, maybe it's kind of daily, right? Check in at the end of the day. Did I do what I said I was going to do? I am telling you, sticking to your calendar is an amazing way to show yourself that you have your own back. It gives you so much power. And when we're thinking like other people are kind of, railroading us or getting us off course or whatever the words might be in your brain, when you think it's your boss or your spouse or your in laws that are making your life so challenging, guess what? When we give them the power, when we say it's on them, then they need to change in order for us to feel better. And I assure you, after 5 decades, well, I mean, maybe I wasn't trying to change people when I was a toddler, but who knows? I could have been. But the fact is, no matter how hard we try, we cannot change people. The great news is if you can shift out of that victim mentality, right, where it's everybody else causing the problems, and hold your power, knowing that you can take control, you can set boundaries, you can say no. And I know, it's easier said than done, but it is possible. That is when you will start seeing changes in your life. But the work is hitting those edges, right? Hitting those edges in your life that you start saying no, that you set boundaries. And that can be super uncomfortable. But in the discomfort is also where we expand and we can take on new levels. And one other area to look at, so we have time blocking. Another area to look at is your self care routine. Are you treating your self care time as a non negotiable? I almost feel like that might be a rhetorical question, and I know the answer. It's probably no. If you're like most women I talk to. Listen, if you are not taking care of yourself, and I'm not talking about like bubble baths and facials and massages. If you are doing that, rock on. Yes, please, and more. Thank you. I'm just talking about the basics of self care, like physical, emotional, mental foundations, the wellness that we can start implementing across our life that are very simple tasks to do. And yes, sometimes we have to tell people that you need to take a break, right? It might be a simple task of just taking 5 minutes to step away, to take a breath in your car, to meditate, or to find time to work out on your calendar that you've done the time blocking for, right? So it's being very intentional with what self care looks like. And I want to tell you, if you're one of my folks that say, I don't have time to do that, I don't have time for 5 minutes to meditate, I don't have time to work out, here's the secret. You don't just find the time, right? It goes back to blocking the time, to prioritizing it, to making it, to scheduling it, and to be willing to start small. These are the things that we need to do in order to make the changes for the long term. And yes, there might be times when you have to adjust. Just like a COO or a CEO, you have to navigate changes, right? I get that. But please, let that be the exception, not the norm. And I believe when you are willing to commit to doing this work, to continuously learning, to continuously developing yourself, and listen, it might be through formal education, it might be through simple self reflection, or maybe some general networking skill building. It can look different for everyone, but the core of it is that you remain curious and open to continually evolving as the leader in your life. And it will, again, look different for most folks. You know what it looks like for you. At the end of it, I want to assure you, everyone will benefit. When you take care of yourself, when you define what that means for you, everyone benefits. You are an example of what is possible, and you make that ripple effect in the world. And speaking of ripple effects in others, I think it's also super important as the CSO to build a network of mentors, allies, supportive relationships that foster growth and collaboration. When we can reinforce that neural pathway that we are on the right track, right? We are stepping into our self belief. We have more excitement and motivation and folks around us. It just continues to build. Just like a CEO builds a network to further the organizational goals, a CSO leverages the connections for mutual support and enrichment, right? That's what makes it fun. That's what keeps us going. And think about the folks that you have looked up to through the years who have made that impact on your life. And then take a moment to reflect about how you have done the same for others and can continue to do the same for others. It's just like so much fun to consider, right? And one of my coaches used to say, let's not call it the ripple effect. Let's call it making waves. I don't know, she might be right, right? What if? What is the one thing that you can start doing today that might seem like a ripple effect, but in the end is ultimately making waves? one small thing that you can add to that line, right, on your resume as CSO that will start changing your life. And again, you start small today and then you do it tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And then guess what? All of the small things, the daily intentional habits add up to some pretty amazing changes in your life. And being your own chief self officer means that you are doing that. You are living intentionally. You are taking full ownership of your path and you are aligning everyday actions with those long term personal and professional objectives. It truly is one of the most, if not the most, powerful approach to living life that you can have. Living life with agency, resilience, fulfillment. And I would love to hear from you. So please feel free to post what is that one thing that you're doing today and tag me at Michelle Bourque Coaching. And remember, you can always get on my email list, and that's where I share more free tools, concepts, ideas, michelleburquecoaching.com/list. And again, Bourque, Bourque. Okay, friends, that's what I have for you today. Let's meet back here next week. But for now, make it a great day. Take care.
Did you know you can take this work to a deeper level with me one-on-one? Go to michelleburquecoaching.com and click on Get Started to begin.